One of the parents of the PTO at the local high school identified the need for improved tennis courts. The tennis courts that were there were old, they were basically forgotten, and so through Go Neighborhoods, she was actually able to go ahead and leverage partnerships with the Houston Tennis Association, with the U.S. Tennis Association, and with actual schools nearby to raise funding and for us to actually implement a brand new tennis court. This is so key to the community because not only is this a win, showing how collaborative partnerships actually can bring something new to the community, something useful, but it's really enriching the youth. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Give me 1 second. Kind of short. My name is Lizbeth Mejia, and I'm the Assistant Director with Avenue CDC, the convening agency in LISC Northside community. Avenue CDC was founded in 1991 by a group of neighbors who wanted to develop affordable housing to preserve the diversity of the community. We were actually founded in a historic district just on the outskirts of Houston's downtown. Like a lot of cities in the Southwest, Houston's downtown was a busy office district by day and basically deserted at night. In the early 1990s, the city leaders began a concerted effort to revitalize downtown, and the residents feared that their beloved neighborhood would be destroyed in the process. Like many of the historic neighborhoods surrounding Houston's downtown, Northside was settled by railroad workers and tradesmen in the late 1800s. It was a diverse community with Italian Americans, African Americans, and Hispanics of all income levels living side by side. Today, we continue to see diversity of our residents. While it's an increasingly younger population, we also have many active seniors in our community. The Northside is heavily Hispanic community, both of generational Texans as well as new immigrants, and a growing African American and Anglo population. This makes for an eclectic tapestry in both food and community identity. We're beginning also to see young professionals and retirees who are tired of suburban commuting, who want to be connected to employment and entertainment opportunities in downtown Houston. We're a community of 50% renter and 50% homeowners. This creates a challenge when we're actually trying to engage these absentee landlords and renters in terms of delayed maintenance and really engaging with the community. We're also enjoying an interesting weave of architecture styles, which reflect the styles of the last 150 years, including charming bungalows and elegant Victorian homes. It was this diversity and the historic architecture that the CDC's founders wanted to preserve. Sadly, very sadly, many of the historic homes had fallen into disrepair, and the community was dotted with vacant lots, which were a haven for illegal dumping and crime. Improving the community and replacing vacant lots with quality housing were other goals of the organization's founders. While rising property values and redevelopment were displacing low-income families from our community, we began to promote affordable homeownership, one family and one home at a time. We rehabilitated older homes and provided homebuyer education and counseling to help low-income families stay in our community. Eventually, we also began to develop affordable rental housing and commercial projects. To date, Avenue CDC has leveraged over $40 million of investments in our community through the development of 96 single-family homes, 334 rental units, and 78,000 square feet of commercial space. Our homebuyer education and counseling program serves over 600 families each year, and we also provide after-school and summer activity programs to the residents of our 4 apartment complexes. Throughout our 20-year history, Avenue CDC has been primarily a housing organization. Of course, we'd always work collaboratively with the community in terms of referrals, and we pride ourselves on being a resident-led organization, with the majority of our board members either living, working, or managing businesses in the target area. We'd even helped to sponsor an economic revitalization plan for our community back in 2002. However, we'd never before engaged in this type of sustained grassroots community organizing that we've done with the LISC Sustainable Communities program. The need for a more comprehensive approach has become increasingly apparent to us over time. We were frustrated that we would develop beautiful new homes and then struggle to sell them because of the crime and dilapidated conditions of the surrounding neighborhood. We struggle with vandalism caused by kids and teens who had nothing to do after school. We felt sure that our neighborhood had a promising future, with its proximity to downtown and a new light rail which would soon connect it to Houston's world-famous medical center. However, we feared that many of our current residents would be forced out or would decide to leave before this bright future was realized. Why would they stay in a place with struggling schools, illegal dumping, rising rents, and property taxes? Fortunately, our neighborhood also has a strong sense of community engagement and a core group of resident leaders with a firm belief in the community's future. When LISC Sustainable Communities announced the program 2 years ago, we invited a group of community leaders together to discuss the opportunity and were met with tremendous enthusiasm. Yes, it's not all bad. Initially, some of our board members were actually concerned that the effort would distract us from our housing development activities. In fact, the Go Neighborhoods program had been launched during a critical time in our housing programs, as we're in the midst of our largest housing development to date. I'll be honest and admit that at times it's been a strain to launch this brand new initiative at the same time as we're launching our 2 apartment complexes and 95 single-family homes. However, all of our board members recognize that quality housing alone does not ensure a healthy community. We need good schools to educate our children. Currently, over 40% of our young children don't graduate high school. We need quality health care, but our zip code generates more unnecessary emergency room visits than any other in the city. We need playgrounds and pedestrian-friendly streets so we can get exercise, but many of our parks are perceived to be unsafe, and our sidewalks are broken or missing. So Avenue CDC stepped up as a commuting agency, and working with local residents, civil club leaders, and other nonprofit organizations, we developed a quality of life agreement for our community. And we like to tell people what's the difference between a plan and our quality of life agreement, and that is that our quality of life agreement actually has an individual attached to each project. So there's accountability, which really makes it not only belong to the neighborhood, but much more likely to be implemented. Along the way, the community has implemented a number of early action projects, so we could feel the thrill of success, as well as to show others in the community how some tangible results were actually coming from all the planning. You're going to hear directly from some of our community leaders, both in video and in person, who will tell you about these projects, like the refurbishing the tennis courts and softball field at the local high school, a project that collaboratively engaged students, parents, administrators, and neighbors so that our young people would have a quality place to exercise and play. We unveiled our quality of life agreement last fall and presented it to our mayor and other elected officials to great fanfare. But now, of course, the hard part begins, implementation. We have envisioned great things for our community: quality schools, plentiful affordable housing, first-rate parks, and more. But we've done so in the midst of a recession that's now hitting Houston hard. And with major cuts likely in all the government funding programs that would have naturally supported our initiatives, we're concerned. Actually, we're terrified of letting them down, because our community has really held us accountable as much as we've held them accountable. The good news is that we're actually better positioned now to handle these difficult times than we were a year ago. A community united is a community strengthened. An example is a recent city government hearing regarding parks and other capital projects. Park improvements in our neighborhood had been delayed and even canceled. But when we showed up at the hearing as a united front to protest, our city councilman got involved and those decisions were reconsidered. And now I even think we'll get them on time. So. We're also better positioned now to attract investments to our community. We've been providing tours to our neighborhood to foundation officers, public officials, and private donors so that they can see firsthand the challenges that we have in our neighborhood and our strategies to address them. Our strategies include leveraging public sector funding at the local, state, and regional level, as well as increasing accountability to ensure our projects are implemented and maintained. More importantly, we're supporting the community's voice in providing guidelines for public projects for effective planning and growth. We're also actively pursuing private sector funding to strengthen and grow small businesses and connect residents to employment and educational opportunities. By effectively connecting residents to resources and building their civic and financial capacity, we're seeking to create a strong regional economy. We're investing in the community for the well-being of our greatest asset, our youth. It is through the LISC comprehensive approach that we can actually see the sustained positive impact in our community. At this point, we're very early in our journey, but now I want to let you hear directly from some of the people and community leaders who have actually helped to get us where we are today.
The youth are obviously vital to everyone's future, and the youth have been included during the quality of life planning process. They are being accessed in different ways through the schools. They've been a part of some of the planning of community gardens, re-sparking the spark parks in the neighborhood. But I think long-term is increasing the graduation rates in this neighborhood.
I mentor the youth in the area. I also get them interested and being involved in volunteer activities. I tell the students how I was brought up, and I tell them that I'm from the area and that if they believe in themselves, they can be whatever they want to be and pursue any type of career that they want to pursue, and through education and through volunteering, and that they can also develop their work and they can have employable skills.
A financially stable family can provide a stable and consistent environment for the kids. And when the family's not in crisis, it's easier for the kids to learn. It's easier for the kids to feel safe and comfortable and excel at their education, but also in building relationships with others.
And we have a financial opportunity center here at the Wesley Community Center that LISC supports. And that one-stop shop is a place that we want to engage youth as well as families to find access to better jobs, be able to access public benefits, and also have financial coaching and training on how to move up and live the American dream.
Well, single mom came one day. She had the eviction notice, and single mother of 3 children. We helped her with the rental assistance for the months that she was behind. We helped her access affordable childcare in our center, so she could start looking for a job. We prepared her with her resume and job interviewing skills, and she really quickly found a job. I mean, we placed her in job, and she is motivated to continue education. We help her with financial aid for the continuing education at the Houston Community College. And so she's really stable right now and moving forward, and her son is going to graduate soon and in the summer, so he's going to enroll in our program, and it will help him with planning for continuing education and job search.
Go Neighborhoods was able to partner and fund a project with the Y, wherein we provided leadership training to youth. And now they are doing monthly series of different volunteer events throughout the community. Not only are we seeing youth that actually live in the community give back to the community, but they're actually training their peers.
Through the Go Neighborhoods effort, through this collaborative effort of creating a vision, identifying opportunities, articulating a strong economic future for the neighborhood with great resources, housing, places to shop, the things that people want in their neighborhood, that is going to create a place where the youth can thrive while they're young, and then after they're educated or decide on their career, a place where they can stay. And Avenue CDC is doing a great job of leading those efforts.
So as illustrated in the video, the Y is a partner with LISC, and very excited to be here to talk about the importance of creating partnerships to support youth development and sustainable communities. And I'm very excited to be here. A few days ago I didn't have a voice, so bear with the squeakiness. So my name is Marie Arcos, and I'm a native Houstonian and grew up just on the outskirts of near Northside, where our GO project is. I currently work with the YMCA as a community executive director. This is my 10th year to be employed by the Y, and prior I served on the board for 6 years. I chose to volunteer and work for the Y because of the impact the organization has worldwide, and I wanted to be part of a strong movement that could benefit the community that I knew to be so asset-rich but resource-poor. When Go Neighborhoods began the work in the first year, building teams and creating the plan, it was a lot of work. But what I quickly found out that this was not going to be just another project or plan that we put on the shelves, but a grassroots effort where results were quickly seen. I recall sitting at one of the meetings and stating how this was the first time in 9 years working in that community that I could see how the pieces of the puzzle were creating a better and more promising landscape for the near North Side and specifically youth. So imagine you're 16 and it's Saturday, the alarm clock is going off. What time do you think it is? 10, 11, noon? No, it's 6 a.m. and you're up and excited to start working with your peers to plant trees, clean up the bayou, or deliver care packages to international refugees during the holidays. This is how many of the teens in the community spend their weekends and summer breaks, helping and serving others. Last year, the Y received a LISC grant to help fund a summer teen escape. This is a trip where teens from all over Houston go to another city or town to participate in a week-long project in a predetermined area that will benefit and assist another community. This group of teens created a video documentary about the project they did in Corpus Christi this past summer. Not only did they clean up a park, spruce up some select houses, organize activities for seniors, their efforts caused City Council to take notice of the dilapidated area, and a news feature was done on them in the TV and on the newspaper. And to top it off, a letter of appreciation was sent to our teens in Houston from the mayor of Corpus Christi. The teens were overwhelmed at how much of an impact they had on the project in just 1 week. Over the course of the year, these teens have had the opportunity to talk to board members, school peers, and other community leaders about the experience of Teen Escape and why service learning is important. I will share with you some of the statements the teens included in the video. This was a life-changing time for me. I always thought I lived in a poor area and didn't have much, but seeing that there are others who live worse than me made me realize how much I really do have. This teen, through this trip, was able to create a positive identity for herself. Another teen who grew up in the Northside, he's a senior and a football player, said, I really liked talking to the city council lady about why we were doing the project, but what I liked most was that I had something to say and somebody wanted to listen. The lesson he learned was that community values youth. A final comment I want to share with you was from a teen. She was new to the program. She didn't know anyone prior to the trip, and she said that she thought making friends would be really hard and almost didn't come. But what she found out was just the opposite. She was a natural-born leader. She helped organize the day's events, the meals, and the fun activities they did in the evenings. Everyone really liked the fact that she was interested in similar things, but mostly that they could learn to trust someone in such a short amount of time by working towards a common goal. What we can all learn from her story is the value of constructive use of time. And so I know you can't tell it, but I'm really, really proud of the teens that I just talked about, because they're my kids, and they're our neighborhood kids. But far too many times, our teens are overlooked and undervalued. Every day, our community in the Northside is plagued with thousands of teens who aren't connected or engaged with anything positive. All teens should have access to programming to help save or to shape their future and to save them. It is the teens that are connected that helps keep the passion alive in the workers at the YMCA and in our community to provide effective programming in our schools, parks, and community centers. The Search Institute has done a study on the 40 developmental assets necessary for youth to be successful. From their study of ninth graders, they found that most students only had 17 assets. Most of these teens had low self-esteem, were not college-bound or ready, and were candidates for school dropout or truant behavior. In addition, the Children's Defense Fund released the Cradle to Prison Pipeline study, which states that 1 in every 3 African American boys and 1 in every 6 Hispanic boys will end up in our prison system. While these numbers are 5 times higher for boys than girls, the numbers are alarming given the current demographics. During the summer training at the Y, I make sure that I point out this study to our new workers, and I ask them to envision the children that they're going to be working with, and I ask them to make a commitment to making a difference. That one child in those groups of 3 or group of 6 that they're going to be working with can end up in the prison system. But they, as one person, have the power to change that life for that one child and to help break the pipeline to prison. The importance of these studies, it is important. The importance of these studies for social organizations and community is that the more we lift up our youth and work through preventive programming and interaction, the more likely they are to succeed in life. These 2 studies also support the needs identified for the GO neighborhoods in the first year of planning and our organizing efforts. GO neighborhood meetings continue to find that youth are the common thread in the issues of safety, health, mobility, family income and wealth, and youth and education. A strategy for this second year includes increased out-of-school program for youth. We are working with a LISC grant in partnership with the City of Houston, the WorkSource, a governmental assistance agency, and the Y to provide a summer camp at our local park, which will be affordable for the working poor and can be accessed by walking, a bus, or their own vehicles. Finally, I would like to come full circle with the importance of partnerships and leveraging the resources that LISC and Go Neighborhood brings to inner city organizations. Our local Y is receiving a gym makeover as a legacy gift from the NCAA Final Four hosted in Houston this week. So we are court number 68 in the initiative that the Final Four has in refurbishing 68 courts in 68 days. The estimated value of this gift is over $200,000. While the dollar amount in the gift is unbelievable, you can bet that the number of youth and the amount of programming that will increase because of the renovations will far exceed the value of the gym in community benefit. That's the reputation we have at the Y, and through joint efforts of community leaders in the Northside, we produce. We plan on embracing the NCAA as part of our family and continue to share with them the lives that are changing daily by having the opportunity for children to follow their dreams through the activities that will take place in not only a state-of-the-art, but state-of-the-heart gym. Go Neighborhoods provides opportunities to help nurture and guide youth in the direction towards lifelong success. Thank you for your interest and your support of LISC and Go Neighborhoods Northside. Now stay tuned for Monique Howard, who will share with you her compelling story of the work she is leading with youth in what was once a forgotten section of the neighborhood, but she is quickly reviving its historical reputation for creating legacy. Monique?
Thank you, Marie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monique Howard. I grew up and reside in the Northside, which is a working class community in Houston, Texas. The Ryan Civic Club was founded in 1940. It is one of 6 in the Northside area, and it has accomplished many things since its creation. In the past, the Civic Club leaders have avidly fought for paved roads and schools. They even prevented a toll road construction from taking away their homes. They also instilled a sense of pride and community in youth. I stand here today speaking to you because of their faith, dedication, and determination. The late Mr. Earl Henderson was a World War II veteran, a retired postman, a coach in Ryan Edition for 30 years, and he was a father figure to most of the youth. We called him Mr. Earl. He influenced generations. Thanks to Mr. Earl, many of our youth learned humility, responsibility, teamwork, and the importance of community service. He taught many lessons through the game of baseball. Mr. Earl allowed me to be the first girl to play in that area baseball team. It was 44 boys and 1 girl. Later, he allowed me to be the assistant coach for that team. I saw through Mr. Earl how bravery, tenacity, mixed up with good work can inspire you to do great things, even though people would say they would fail. You're looking at one of the people that they said would fail. Me. I wasn't supposed to be here. Most likely I was supposed to be a dope dealer or probably dead by now. And where I lived, my stepfather was a weekend alcoholic. So we dealt with a whole lot of violence during the weekend. And that's the story of most of the youth in my neighborhood right now. They're dealing with all kinds of stuff. It's not just the drug addiction, it's just resources, everything that's stopping them from achieving things. But because of people like Mr. Earl, I received an athletic scholarship. I also got a degree in criminal justice, which I haven't used it a day yet, but through that, I was a 2-time All-American in basketball. I'm a 3-time Super Bowl champ in football. And I have worked in the elementary school where I live. I now work in the Houston Community College, which services the high school in my neighborhood. So I continue to deal with kids. That's why through Mr. Earl that I have a passion for kids. And that I think that through one person, many things can happen. Now, unfortunately, in 2007, I joined that civic club. The old fame that they had that inspired people to demand change, it had died. There were only a handful of members. Most of them was over the age of 65. At that time, I think I was about 37 when I joined the civic club. And at that time, you know, I was dealing with a lot of things. There was a lot of things that was going on at the time. The building that we were in was, the ceiling was coming down. So I helped to get a fundraiser, and we raised $6,000. And that $6,000 helped us to revitalize that building. But that wasn't the biggest dilemma for us. The biggest dilemma for us was that the predominantly African-American neighborhood had changed. It's now mostly Hispanic. In that, it made a disconnect between the civic club and the community. The old people wanted to preserve their history because they were part of all the changes, the road, stopping things, so they felt if they let the others come in that, you know, they were going to lose their history. So they systematically blocked new members, and they kept all their work to a minimum, which was, you know, when I got there, I was like, man, what is the real deal? You know, what is it about a color that makes a difference? It's about helping people. But like I say, they was older, they had worked real hard for what they did, and they didn't want to change. And so I was like, we have to do something. If we're going to go back to the kind of civic club that we had in the past, that we had to include everyone in the community, no matter what color they were, that we had to put everybody, be a part of it. Because we wanted to provide a place where our kids can live and play. So after a while, the membership went up, and they decided to, I don't know why, but they decided to make me the president of the civic club. We thought of different ways to help the youth, to engage the new community, to preserve the history for the older people, and also just to, just to get everybody to become one. So through Avenue CDC and I work with LISC, we ended up doing we wrote a grant to be able to do a mural, and that mural was going to talk about my hero, which was Mr. Earl. Because you don't know what it is like to, I know some of you might, but you don't know when you don't know what to do. The only way in these kids to be able to make it is that they have to have extracurricular activity. They have to go somewhere else. If I had to stay in my house and listen and do the things and see the things that were going on, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't. And so that's why it's so important for the extracurricular stuff to go on, that we need it. We have like 8 Go teams, and I end up being on the history and the youth Go team. And so in the process of doing that, what we did was we took the high school kids, we took the middle school kids, and just kids from the neighborhood to come and help do this mural. Now, you know that Hispanics are very good in art. So it was a way that we could get the Hispanic kids to come in and do the mural. And then also we had other kids come in and cut the grass, because the idea is just like me. When I look at the park that we played at, I know that I was a part of that. That park now that we used to just hit the ball at, it says Earl Henderson on it. You know, so those are things. So I know that I was a part of that team. And those kids that are part of this mirror know that, hey, it's something. And in that, we brought the old people that played on the baseball team to come in and, you know, show their support, and also to bring the new community to say, hey, this is for you. We used to say it was the Ryan Civic Association. I had them to change it and put community, for them to understand that this is about all of us. It's about the whole group of us. It's not, when we stop thinking about numbers, you know, because that's the biggest thing. The thing with, like, the Salvation Army in my neighborhood, kids can go there through the year, they say $6 for the whole year. But when the summer comes, they have to pay $95. So where are those kids going to go? Now we're dealing with the recession. We're dealing with cuts back. People that couldn't even afford to feed their kids now are trying to find extracurricular activities to help them in the process. So in that we have 6, like I said earlier, we have 6 civic clubs. So I felt that if we can get those civic clubs to come together and be able to do programs within those civic clubs to help the numbers. Because it's really, you know, everybody's about numbers, but how many people are we really, really helping? How many kids that are like me that wouldn't make it? Yeah, I look good now. Yeah, I know. But I'm telling you, it didn't start off like that. And could you imagine a girl with 44 boys? Could you imagine what boys said about me? Could you imagine what girls said about me? Do you know when I went to college, I had very, very low self-esteem because of the things that I dealt with. But because of what Mr. Earl, that one man, just think one man for 35 years served his community. That's why I would not leave Ryan Addition, because I feel that I have an obligation to be able to help anyone that I can. That's why I work at the schools. That's why I play in the area that I live. That's why it's a part of me. Now, I feel that it's time for a change. Really. I really think it's a time for a change. And when I say about change, we need to get away from numbers. We need to get away from numbers. And when I say about getting away from numbers, we need to start thinking about the children that we can save just by opening a door about serving where you live. Now, we can all come together. We can be that village that raises its kids. We can improve the area we live in. We need to increase the communication between the communities. We need to fire up enough motivation to create a change. If we, did you hear me? If we do that, we can inspire another generation of youth of Northside and everywhere in this world that the fruit of our inspiration will go all over the world. I thank you very much, and we're now having a video for you.
The long-term projects that the community has identified in the North Side revolve a lot around the physical redevelopment of this community. You have the Metro North Line light rail that's under construction currently. That's going to have a major impact on this community. And this community wants to shape and influence what that looks like. And that's why they've come up with their own rail resolution that they've presented to Metro to clearly lay out that they want to have a pedestrian-friendly, walkable community. And they've laid out very clearly the type of development that they would like to see.
With Avenue CDC, there have been beautiful homes, that affordable homes that are available to the community. They're beautiful, they're energy efficient, and they provide a new place for young families to live safely in the community. It's like a seed being planted. And once that seed begins to sprout and grow roots, that it will affect changes in other homes nearby.
Our leaders have really stepped up. What we saw was a year ago was potential, was a lot of passion and a lot of energy, is now actually resulting in projects being implemented, in relationships being strengthened, and in people being very proactive and not only identify what the needs are, but really how they themselves within the community can create a sustainable solution.
With Go Neighborhoods, we have a voice. Okay, we are getting things done in the neighborhood. We have that voice, we have a leadership, and we have a goal for the future.
So you'll see I've learned a few things in this Go Neighborhoods process. Don't go right after Monique. You got to put a video in there, and then I can get up in front of everybody. A lot of what you've heard today is very serious, but you'll also see that this work is really fun. And we get to work with people who care about each other, care about us, we care about them, and make change in neighborhoods that have been waiting for it for a long time. So a sustainable community is a healthy community. It's a place for stable families, safe streets, good schools, quality housing, and it's a place where there's a future for the residents. A sustainable community is one where actions today represent the long-term thinking needed to create a tomorrow full of opportunity. It's one where families are building their financial capacity and are able to start planning for the long term by saving for their children's education because they have the resources to save and because they know their kids are going to graduate from high school. It's also a place where families can save for a house because they know it's something within reach now. And it's also a place where families know that by joining with their neighbors and going to their mayor and their city council member, they're going to help make changes happen in City Hall that affect their neighborhood in a positive way. Remember that young girl that I talked about earlier who traveled across town for school? Well, one of the best charter schools in the country is opening up 2 junior high campuses within access of her neighborhood. And LISC is working with our New Markets tax credit effort to help make that happen. And the mom who was paying too much in rent, thanks to Avenue CDC's housing development and a city program, that same mom is making a mortgage payment on a beautiful house with a great yard and a big enough dining room for her family that is half the amount of the rent she was paying before. And the stinky tunnel? Well, the city council member is working with the management district and neighborhood leaders on Northside's Go Mobility team, which is led by the gentleman who is trying to ride his bike through that tunnel, to look at long-term and short-term solutions to improve mobility and safety for that same tunnel. And you heard Monique and Marie talk about school programs or after-school programs for the kids in the neighborhood and really focusing on ways to create safe places for the youth so they can be doing the right things at the right times. The signals that we're hearing from our state capitol during this year's legislative session are frightening, and we're hearing similar scary stories about the budget situation at the city level and at our school districts. This work matters now more than ever. The stories of success that we've shared with you today represent the people that we've been able to reach, but there are a lot more teens and a lot more families and a lot more people still out there to work with. These neighborhood leaders are organized, and they're organizing to lead their communities toward action and change. Their information network, and more importantly, their problem-solving network that they've created through Go Neighborhoods has now been called into action. And they have bigger stakes and better potential results. Engaging families and helping the residents to connect the dots regarding how all these issues affects them, it's really the power of democracy in action. Integrating the youth in these efforts now matters a lot, but what matters even more is that they're building that foundation of leadership for the tomorrow's leaders in Northside. You heard Marie talk about it. It's happening, and they're embracing the work, and there are still more folks to engage in the effort. So tackling the projects to support youth and family is proving to be the strategy in Northside that's advancing the work most effectively. We have to get it right at the neighborhood level if we're going to get it right at the city, regional, or state level. We've been using the theme of the puzzle. The neighborhood itself has put a number of the puzzle pieces into place on their own. But while this is true, not all the pieces are in the neighborhood. So with plan in hand, we are going to business leaders, foundation representatives, government workers, and other partners and potential partners to help bring other pieces of the puzzle to the table. We like to call this plan off the shelf because a lot of folks refer to their plans as, oh, it's something that collects dust on the shelf, but ours are off the shelf. And we have dog-eared versions, but we've also created a summary version for each of you. So if you haven't gotten one, make sure that you get it so that you can see what the Northside has planned for their neighborhood and how dynamic this effort is. We also look to all of you and ask you what you can do in your own towns and cities and regions to help take this work to the next level, to help LISC and others like LISC and like Northside that are doing the same things in the neighborhoods where you live. It's efforts like these and having you all use your influence that will make sure these efforts succeed.
One voice.
Strong action.
Sustainable communities.
One voice, strong action, sustainable communities. We can do a lot alone, but our great opportunities will be fully realized when we all work together. Thanks. We definitely want to take some questions in the next few minutes. We have about 10 or 15 minutes, but we'd also like to engage in dialogue with you and hear your reactions and ideas that you may have after learning more about Northside. So I think there's a mic in the middle, or if you have a really loud, do they have to talk in the mic, or can they just talk from where they are? Go to the mic. It's in the middle.
I don't always get to talk at a mic, so I'm going to the mic.
Great.
I get to yell a lot, but. And so my name is Cinnamon Pelly, and I am with the LISC Advisory Council in Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. Hi.
Go, Cincy.
And I represent J.P. Morgan Chase Foundation. I'm curious around other communities that are engaging in this work. What are some of the things that you certainly should do, and what are some of the things you should try to avoid?
Ooh, both those lists are really long. I will definitely let these folks chime in, but I think we said it many times, it's the relationships. People have to meet each other, and they have to find out what drives them to this work and what they have to offer, and their vision. And creating that shared vision and that trust among the people who are coming to the table makes the biggest difference of all. And what to avoid, not connecting. And not understanding how things are really interlocked, and avoiding an integrated approach is going to be a challenge for any neighborhood. But I'll let these folks share some ideas.
I have one off just really quickly, is that, you have to get the whole community engaged. So if a funding opportunity or a resource comes to the neighborhood, it can't just be about one agency or one group of people. It really has to be about the stakeholders, and they have to own that. And so it's up to the community organizations to really be very clear and articulate what is expected should those funding opportunities come to the neighborhood. And that's what will create the sustainability, is that you're teaching people how to make the best use of what they're receiving. And I think the thing to avoid is that if you are the fiscal agent or whatever, that you want it to succeed so much that you do all the work if the engagement's not happening. So there has to be, a lot of groundwork has to be laid, and the foundation has to be created before you can start seeing the fruits of the labor.
And actually, just to add one more thing, I think it's important to remember that if you're outside the community, you can see a laundry list of things that should be changed or improved. The community themselves can actually identify their priorities, and they actually also have ideas, solutions to how to address those issues. So really tapping into what they already know just from living there.
Hi, my name is Ruth Hamilton. I'm local. LISC has been supporting our Southwest, near Southeast Southwest Community Benefits Coordinating Council. And I love your name, Quality of Life Agreement. We keep talking about community benefits agreements, and that's kind of a big difference, but I like this. When you talked about this being an agreement, not just a plan, an agreement that you hold people accountable for, I guess I'll have to go to the full document to see that. But I'm interested in how you coordinate the accountability piece. How do you coordinate that? Do other organizations have their own, their own rights, their own structure within your neighborhood, like the Ryan Civic Association or whatever the name was of the Ryan Group? So how do you say, okay, you all are responsible for this, and you're responsible for this? Because we have a lot of groups that we're trying to coordinate.
Absolutely. I'll let Lisbeth talk about the steering committee and the role that it plays in tracking and accountability.
Well, so we did an actual planning process that was about a year long. And one of the important things to remember when doing this work is that it's all a process. I mean, there are things that are going to come up unexpectedly in terms of you find out that there's not an actor at the table that should be there, or that, you know, you have a certain resource that you really want to build upon. So during our planning process, we let people self-identify into their specific go team, so their specific interest area. So for example, let's say go history with Monique. So when people actually self-identify what their interest is, they actually volunteer to go ahead and be accountable for it. If you do happen to look at our actual plan, it's a matrix that we've created. So we set up short-term and long-term goals, and we ask the community, what is it you want to see in the next 5 to 10 years? And so they identify their priorities. And one of the key things to remember is that when they were identifying these, some of them had already begun in process, but they really wanted to build upon them. So for example, they really wanted to engage the business community. And so one of the longer term goals was to create a commercial district, which we already have a management district, but they wanted something to accompany that and strengthen it. So when you allow for those things, we could identify certain key actors, for example, the management district, that could help establish that. But then again, we also saw that there was a need for additional actors. So we pretty much gathered everybody at the table and said, okay, who's not at the table yet? And so we reached out to them. And one of the things you're going to find is that people are more than willing to help. So we didn't necessarily know the key directors at any number of organizations, let me just say Metro. But I mean, by reaching out to them, letting them know what it is that you're doing and how it's mutually beneficial, they're absolutely willing to work with you and help you along the process, because it's good PR for them. And so that's really how we got that. Now, in the planning process, we also went ahead and also set up a steering committee, which is our decision-making body. In Houston area, most of the, in terms of capital improvements or requesting funding from the city to do improvement projects around the city, for example, let's say the parks or for streets, et cetera, are done through a super neighborhood. Our representative body of a super neighborhood was defunct. And that was due to the fact of conflicting personalities 2 or 3 years before we began this. And so we stepped in, and when people saw that we were collaborating effectively, the fact that, you know, that you do play a dual or trifold role. For example, Monique is Ryan Civic Club, but then again, she's also a resident, and then again, she's also working with youth. Or, for example, Marie, who is on the Avenue CDC board, but then is also working with the YMCA, but then also grew up there. So really, people are playing multiple roles, and there is that overlap. So that actually adds to just being more effective. So we created the steering committee, which originally was 10 members who were the most active and who wanted to have that representation at the table. And then they themselves identified who was not there at the decision-making body. And so currently, we're up to 18. And we're capping it there.
And I'll share too, there are 2 other things. It goes back to the relationships and making sure that people know each other, because like your family, when you know them and you see them at the dinner table, you're accountable. You have to report what's happening. The other trick is their organization's name's in the book. So when people go, has this happened? Oh, so Go Connect Vitality Group, you're responsible, or Houston Parks Board, have you helped to make that happen? So that helps too, just putting people's name to it. And Lisbeth mentioned that there had to be a champion for each thing, otherwise it didn't get to be in the plan. So. And it's a lot of work. So I think that's the other thing too that we really tested for as LISC is, are these neighborhoods that we're going to work with ready for this right now? Is it the right time for their neighborhood and the players in the neighborhood to go through this process and to tackle it for the next 5 to 10 years? And are they willing? Are they willing to do all the work that it's going to take, because it's a long haul? So the whole leadership development piece is essential as well. And we've invested a lot of time and resources in supporting these resident leaders to brush up on their skills or build skills for the first time about how do they facilitate a meeting? How do they hold other people accountable just in their daily actions of working together? What else? Yes, Teresa.
Amanda, I don't think of Houston as a transit town. So I imagine that your light rail must be pretty important. And I was interested to hear that you have an extension. But since transportation planning often happens at the regional level, how have you managed to get neighborhoods engaged?
And I'll start off and then pass it off to them. But transit is not, integrated in our Houston DNA. It was an example when we had the first 7.5 miles of light rail, which are still there. When it opened, we treated it like a ride at Disney World. We would get on and we'd ride all weekend, and you know, that's what we did. And now people actually use it to get places and go to work and stuff, so it's nice. But this neighborhood is on one of the lines that is funded and is going to happen, the extensions that's under construction right now. And as LISC, you know, we'd seen what happens around the country when light rail and any sort of major transit investment happens to a neighborhood. And so we asked the people at the table in Northside, do you know what this means? Do your residents know what's happening to the neighborhood, but also what opportunities are possible? And do they know how to take advantage of that? So through some funding that we had for some of our sustainable communities work through the Ford Foundation, we provided resources to the Northside to go through an educational process with some consultants about what does it mean? What are the plans? How are decisions made? How do we need to educate ourselves as residents to talk to Metro, to talk to city council people, to be effective and credible partners at the table? And I think as proof of the value of that process, I went to a meeting probably 10 or 12 months into the process and sat quietly at a table where 12 neighborhood residents grilled about 8 people from Metro for 2 hours about what was going to be happening in their neighborhood. And as a sign of the change of leadership in our Metropolitan Transit Authority, they were happy to be grilled. They shared a lot of information. They were very transparent about what decisions had been made, which were still on the table, which were going to be city responsibility, and which were kind of regional issues or Metro issues. We haven't taken it to the regional level yet, and I'll let Lizbeth talk a little bit about kind of the final project that happened, or the next stepping stone project with the Metropolitan Transit Authority and the community a few weeks ago.
Well, and this is an exciting project, and I'm glad that I was kind of there from the very ground level when we first came up with it. How do I say this? Okay, so much. So through the funding through the Ford Foundation that filtered to us through LISC, we conducted focus groups. And so we've been very successful in terms of having monthly meetings and having anywhere between 80 to 110 people come out on a Saturday morning or a Thursday evening and just kind of helping us through the planning process. But you know, there were still people that we weren't reaching out to. So these would be working parents or people that, let's say, they work 7 days a week. And so we went out to where they are. And so that's how we were able to engage the monolingual Spanish-speaking community as well. So we went to the local churches and we went to the PTO meetings. And that's where you're going to find a lot of your parents or seniors that aren't able to attend an evening meeting. And so as Amanda said, we did the focus groups and we were able to glean a number of interesting things, including that while people viewed the rail as a positive thing, they didn't intend on using it, which, you know, we were kind of confused by. And so kind of digging deeper, that's where we found that, you know, they weren't in touch with discount programs. And so if you have a family of 4 or 5, you know, it can become a very pricey endeavor. Also, they weren't very comfortable in terms of the navigation of it. So that's where we've been working with Metro directly, which is our Metropolitan Transit Authority. And just we took these concerns and we've been meeting with them. And we brought up our current leaders, including which there's a young man who he actually bikes to school, and he has to go through that nasty tunnel.
He's the guy from the tunnel.
Yeah, he's not on the video, but been very active. And since this is one of his passions, we've let him know where the opportunities are. And so we've been supporting him as he steps up and really takes on these different opportunities. And so part of what we did was we found that the community wasn't really, they didn't really understand what the rail was going to mean in terms of being a tool both for opportunity but also perhaps for displacement. So we actually had a rail summit about a month ago. It was a month in planning, and in that month we were able to engage more than 400 people, and we were also able to have the CEO of Metro come and not only present but also stay for the entire conference. And so this was our way of kind of educating the community about what their role was in terms of having a voice, as well as what they can do in terms of shaping what's coming forth. And at this point, that's just a starting point. So Amanda can go a little bit more into this, but we're also working with our local, it's called Houston Galveston Area Council, which is a municipality, and they are tapped into regional funding. So now we're at the table there, not only voicing what our concerns are, but learning about, you know, what are some things that are going to affect our community.
So by simply educating themselves and articulating questions in a way that are not trying to cause problems, but are productive questions about what does this mean for our neighborhood and how can we give you, Metro, information that helps you make good decisions. the Northside residents have become very credible partners to Metro, and they're a go-to neighborhood that the CEO will reach out to and his key leaders will reach out to when they need community input. So they've really improved neighborhood power and how Metro makes decisions. And what's exciting is that they're listening to them in everything from transit and the stops and what happens there, but also are the bus routes the right routes and how are people using them, and providing lots of great information resources for the families so that the families there realize that transit is not about just trying to go downtown. It's a way to get to jobs and education and health care, and that it's a means to an end. It's not just something that comes through the neighborhood. So they've become effective players at the neighborhood level, and then now also the regional level, having a seat at the table. And one more. Yes. No, we got to.
Can you talk a little bit about how you have grown resident involvement, and in particular how you're keeping them involved and engaged in the effort? One of the challenges I think around the country is people get burned out, or they stop being involved, and it's so critical for this kind of initiative. So how are you addressing that?
You guys want to go first? You want me to go first?
Can I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, you want to start?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think we just have to, we're very strategic in celebrating the successes. So when we talked about the early projects, we made sure that we got everybody involved, that they could do something quickly and immediately, whether it was a small barbecue or something to help further an effort that they were doing. We made sure that we made the funding available to them and made it easy. So once people were able, especially the residents, were able to feel that first bite or that relationship with success, it was easier to get them to continue to come to the meetings and to stay invested. At our recent retreat we had all day with the 18 steering committee members now, that was one of the things that we addressed. How do we keep people motivated? How do we keep the steering committee together? But mostly, how do we continue to grow the amount of residents and keep the ones that started off with us? So I'll let them speak more about it if. Okay.
Well, at the Civic Club, one of the things we were having problem is just having people get involved. And so I started off with the youth and started doing activities with the youth. Either it was a party or something, and then at the same time would do something with the adults, where they'd come together and do something like a Christmas party. And at those events, I would put the stuff that we did within the neighborhood, giving out information. So the more information is given to them, the more active they become. So if the Y is doing something, it's not necessarily my project, but if the Y is doing something, I make sure that my neighborhood kids know, and then they can go and be a part of that. So the whole thing is to pretty much stay connected. So if you stay connected with all the resources that you have, then you can keep everybody active, because everybody's not into athletics, everybody's not into art. But if you continue, if another organization is doing something, make sure that you let everybody know so they have that opportunity, and you might even have to drive them over there. But at the same time, they'll keep knowing that it's something always going on, that it's not just waiting for Ryan to do something. It can be Moody Park. It can be anything, just like the NAACP is coming. So I can get those youth that would never probably have the opportunity to do that, but through the Y and our relationship, I can get those kids to be able to be a part. And then their parents realize that, hey, it's something good going on. And then once people see that, then they tend to say, okay, well, let's, my biggest thing, I always wanted kids to go back and be different. So if a kid is different than what they leave home, and their mama will say, well, what's going on with you? If they stop cussing, or they coming home on time, they doing things that's different, then the parents say, well, I need to check and see who Monique is. And so that's kind of the process that I use.
Go ahead.
Just one last thing. One of the key things that we repeated it before, it's all about relationship building. I mean, it's really reaching out, and as someone mentioned, there is going to be some burnout, or some life comes up, and so people have to drop off for a bit. And so that's why it has to be a continual, ongoing process where you're reaching out to folks or asking folks that are already at the table, who else should we talk to? The way we did the initial 100 was we did a simple SWOT analysis. So we just went and asked people, what are some of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the community? And that's still our best key tool, so recommend that.
Yeah, it's the relationships. From the LISC perspective, it's investing in the leadership from the very beginning and supporting those leaders, but knowing that it's an ongoing process where you have to continually bring in new leaders who are residents because they have the credibility, they are the experts in their neighborhood, and give them the tools that they need to lead for the long haul. As LISC, we give the message of, you're not a sustainable community if you still depend on us at all during this. And so our goal is just to help fill in gaps so that they can really lead the process. And then I think the other part is just Southern hospitality, making sure there's always food at the meetings and welcoming people and helping people feel comfortable. And we work with a consultant who says, why have a meeting when you can have a party? So when there's some celebration of success or sharing information, whether it be an information resource fair, I know in Northside, the community coordinator does a great job of making sure that there's music, food, and a jumpy for the kids. And people will come out, and in that effort, they learn about what's happening with Go Neighborhoods, what the successes are, and there are ways for them to sign up and get involved, and that's proven to be really effective. But I think we're continually watching that, and how do we as LISC support the neighborhood, but how does the neighborhood continue to bring new people into the process so that they have a continual pipeline of leaders? So great. I think we are at our end of our time. Thank you so much for your attention.